Well, you can hear a little raw emotion in John Wall's voice as he answers the question about what it means to beat the Wizards, who he said thought he was done, Grant. What must that mean? What kind of motivation must that be for John Wall moving forward?
Well, it means a lot, Matt. I mean, John Wall is someone who I think loved DC, loved the Wizards. That was all he's known for his entire NBA career. And obviously, getting hurt, and having those setbacks and working hard, fighting to get back and really save your career and get back to the level that he aspires to. I'm sure it was, incredibly damaging and a blow to his pride and his ego. And as athletes, you look for sources of motivation. And so for him, yeah, obviously, he said it was personal, but he wants to show and prove that not only to the Wizards, to the Wizards fans, but, to all the NBA, that he still has a lot left in the tank. And I think, in addition to Kevin Durant, who, has come out from his injury and been just sensational, Wall, who I think relies more on his athleticism, as Candace said earlier, his speed, getting out in the open court, like that's his game. And he looks really good. I mean, his step, his getting to the rim, turning the corner on folks, being able to absorb contact and finish. You're seeing that from him. And as he continues to put together days, weeks, months of health, I think his basketball will get better and better. And so he's also in an interesting situation. I mean, Houston, you get through the Harden situation. Now they can turn the corner. Gordon starting to find his way. Oladipo. You're seeing these guys are all able to coexist and thrive together. And, they're going to try to make a push here. And, the West is wild and crazy, but right now they're one game out of the playoffs. And they're going to try to, at least I think now, build some momentum as a core group and try to be in that conversation in the playoff picture when it's all said and done.
And Candace, he said something else interesting at the top of that interview about guys wanting to be there, as in Houston. This is true for any room you're in life, right? The dynamic changes when people are happy to be there. And certainly it's true in sports as well. What kind of a difference can it make in a locker room, in practice, on a plane, and translate into a game when everybody's simpatico and happy to be part of the same team?
Well, there were lots of underlying meanings and shots fired in that conversation, in that little snippet. I definitely, my ears perked up when I heard guys wanting to be there. And this is a real thing. Energy is real. Culture is real. Wanting to be there is real. And with that being said, the idea of John Wall coming off an injury and wanting to prove himself again, that might not mean, and I don't think anybody has Houston Rockets competing for a championship this year. So I do think that, it does change the way some guys may approach the season. And saying that in James Harden, he wants to compete for a championship. John Wall, at this point in time, he wants to be in Houston. And that's a good sign. Their goals might not be championship, but it might be making the playoffs. And that is where they're at right now. And so I think that, John Wall is getting his legs back underneath him, like you said. But it is a real thing to see him compete and play. And I'm honestly anxious to know, Grant, what are the emotions going back to play a former team? Because there's got to be a lot of emotions, motivation, and thought going back playing against a team you played for your entire career.
Yeah, Candace, I mean, you've obviously been with the same team, and that's such a luxury. I mean, I think there's a lot of emotions. You want to show, you want to prove to yourself, you want to beat them. There's a lot that's going through, and being able to control those emotions and go out and concentrate and play is of the utmost importance. But it's tough. You are part of that team, that locker room, that was part of your routine, and then all of a sudden, you're somewhere else and you're going back there. It's just a mixed bag of emotions. It's really hard to sort of explain, but it's something that's very real. And I think naturally you have a desire to show your teammates, the organization, your old coaches, everyone, that they're missing you, and that they want, that you still have it, or, whatever the reason why that you left, you still want to stick it to them. And so I understand, I think players who've been in that situation before, Candace, understand where John Wall is coming from. John Wall wanted to end his career in Washington. He wanted to do what, you've done, and you've been fortunate to do, Candace. And so you could tell that he's still hurt, still some pain there. But for him, he's been able to channel that and use that constructively and positively, and it's shown in his play, this far.
3-10 on the season. Bradley Beal led the Wizards as he normally does with 33 points, 8 for 8 from the free throw stripe. You can see the dejection there. Of course, it's always good to see old friends, but with the effort put forth by Brad, you'd rather walk away with the win instead of the salutations. So, without further ado, I want to bring my crew in. Guys, we got a lot to talk about because this was a disappointing loss on the road. A lot we unpacked in the pregame, but I want to talk about this game and all 4 quarters of it. So let's start from the top. Chris Miller, my friend, I'm coming to you first. What were your thoughts on the night?
Before I get to the game, Wall, Westbrook, round 2, February 15th, Capital One Arena. Get your popcorn ready, because what we saw there in that fourth quarter was 2 highly competitive individuals having a get-to-know-you session. So that was must-see TV. Now, as for the game, guys, correct me if I'm wrong. John Wall checked in with 7:20 left in the fourth quarter. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Before our interview yesterday, I asked him about how many minutes he was going to play, and he said, I negotiated 5 more minutes. He was only supposed to play 20 minutes. He ended up playing 24, and you look at how he closed the show tonight, that's because he negotiated his way into getting 5 more minutes out there on the floor. First of all, the signature behind the back lay-in. How many times have we seen that, Wizards fans? That was the play of the game, I thought. Wall challenging to see if Garrison Matthews actually got the charge. And then after that, obviously, what he did there with the back down with Raul Neto. So when you want to go the game within the game, the fact that John was able to secure 5 more minutes of playing time, you see how the game ended.
Well, you talk about the game within the game. Mr. Haywood, earlier in this game, I saw Boogie frustrated, not necessarily, performing at his best, which, of course, I was trying to see if he can get teed up early. Didn't happen. Makes me feel like I'm an idiot. But the question is, why didn't the Wizards continue to try to frustrate him and keep him off his game?
And that's something that's a little puzzling, and I think that's something that the Wizards can do the next time when they play against the Houston Rockets. You have to go at Boogie Cousins in the pick and roll. If you haven't noticed, he's not nearly as athletic as he used to be based off those injuries that have zapped some of his leaping ability and lateral quickness, and he wasn't a guy that had that anyway. So now when you look at what he does in the pick and roll, if you use the pick and roll or dribble handoffs, you can get whatever shot you want against Boogie Cousins. I thought early in the game, Brad got a couple of good shots in the pick and roll. A couple of times Boogie was late in that pick and roll. He was in what we call no man's land, where he didn't guard the jumper or box out his man, allowed Robin Lopez to get some tips in. So I really think that is something when Scott Brooks looks at the film, he's going to say, hey, the next time we play against the Rockets, we got to exploit this matchup. When Boogie Cousins is on the court, he is lunch meat in the pick and roll in the middle of the floor. Let's go at him every time until they sit him down.
You know what, Brendan? We're going to actually be taking a look at exactly what you're talking about a little bit later on in the film room. Plus, we're going to be definitely hearing from Coach Scott Brooks in his post-game press conference. Chase, I'm coming to you real quick because there's a number that jumps off the box score that has slapped me in the face 3 or 4 times. 5 for 26 from three-point line. That's what the Wizards shot. 19%. Please. Yeah, you already know. I don't even have to ask you a question. Go ahead.
Well, first of all, this was a nightmare for the Wizards and a dream for John Wall. He got revenge against his former team, did all the things he wanted to do, and told them all about it along the way. But that's a stat, I think, that illustrates exactly why Bradley Beal wanted the NBA to give them a few more days after their 6 postponements. Clearly, they're not in shape, and even Bradley Beal is showing the signs of that. And Bradley Beal is one of the best conditioned players in the NBA, and it usually shows up in tracking analytics. He covers a lot of ground during games on both offense and defense, usually on average about 3 miles per game. And his shoulders are slumped. He looks tired out there. And it just does not look like the Bradley Beal I'm used to seeing. And there was a moment in the third quarter where he lost the ball and he hung his head walking down the floor. And they called a timeout, and he seemed to be energized after that. But he's fading late in games, and so are the Wizards. And I think you're seeing the effects of that 13-day layoff.
You know, it's crazy, too, because, again, we've talked about how many games in a row that he scored plus 20 points, and now it's up to 35. But that dejection is something that is extremely natural. And, Sticks, I want you to take me in the Wizards locker room, if you can, right now. In your mind, what would you be seeing off Brad's face right now, and how do you console and then try to move forward into tomorrow night's matchup?
I think it's just dejection. He's putting so much energy and effort out there, like Chase said, and it's just not amounting to wins. It's frustrating to go out there and score the ball at will, but also I think he was more frustrated at himself because he turned the ball over on a couple ball handling issues. Maybe that's fatigue. He also missed a lot of easy layups that he normally makes. And mind you, I say